fundamentally, we make web-based products for collaboration for small businesses, all based around the idea of making the simplest possible thing we can. So our products do less than our competition's products. We're not out to beat them by doing more than they do. We want to do less than they do. That's been sort of a theme that's run all the way through the business since we started. When we first started as a web design company, everybody else was sort of doing everything. So it was like full service. I'm sure some of you here probably work at ad agencies or know ad agencies. It's all full service. That's sort of how the web design world was back in 1999. It was all full service. They would do web design, they would do programming, they would do branding, they would do all that stuff. And my feeling was that that's a lot of work and kind of hard. And most people really aren't good at a lot of things either. So what were we good at? Well, it was me and two other people. We were good at web design, just doing the design side of things. So we decided to start a web design company that simply just did design, nothing else. We didn't try and outdo everybody else by doing everything else, just one thing really, really well. And we focused on that. And we focused on doing things simpler than everybody else. So our designs were simpler, clearer, cleaner, didn't have fancy technology. It wasn't about more colors and more fancy stuff. It was like less stuff, fewer pages, really good copywriting, just to simplify everything. So that's sort of been a common theme that we've had throughout the business, always trying to do less than everybody else. And we found that you can achieve a lot of stuff with a small team as long as you get rid of interruptions and distractions at work. So quiet is one of the best things you can give anyone else at work. A lot of companies talk about tools, like giving software, hardware, new chairs, or whatever it might be. If you can give somebody else quiet, peace of quiet and space and time to get their work done, you'll see very few things that pay off as well as those sorts of things. And the other thing that's really cool about what we've managed to build, I think, is that since we don't really have investors, we're self-funded. We can do whatever the hell we want, whenever we want to do it. We don't have to answer anybody. We don't have to sell our company in 3 to 5 years. So anyone here who's thinking about starting a business, I highly recommend that you bootstrap it instead of going out and raising money. A lot of small companies or founders think they have to go out and raise a bunch of money to start a business. I would highly recommend that you try to do that without raising money. Mostly because you want to get used to making money. You have to, if you're going to stay in business for a long period of time, you have to make money. And if you go out and raise money, you're going to get good at spending it, not making it. I hear the term creatives thrown around a lot. I'm sure you guys have heard this term, like creatives. I actually think that that's sort of a derogatory term in many ways, because I think it says that the only people who are creative are people who can design things, or who can paint, or who can write, who can draw, things like that. The truth is that everybody is creative. Business people are creative. Accountants are creative. Lawyers are creative. And I think it's important not to distinguish one group as creative and no one else as creative, because I think it puts up walls. And I see this a lot. We don't do client work anymore, but when we used to, I would see a lot of companies say, well, those are the creatives. We have to treat them specially. They're like special people. And these other people are just like number people and paperwork people. And it's not really that way. So I think it's important that everyone understands that everyone's creative in their own way, has to be creative in their own jobs if they want to do well. What we do is we actually talk to each other all day long, but virtually. So we use a product called Campfire, which is our product, but you can use any kind of product. It's a chat room. And actually, I should mention, our company, we have 23 people in the company, 9 are in Chicago, and then 14 are in 14 other cities around the world. So we have both a local company and a remote company. And so we had to build something or find something that would let everyone sort of talk at the same time in the same way. And so we built this thing called Campfire, which is basically a persistent chat room that's open all the time, and that's where we have all of our conversations pretty much. So even if someone's sitting, even if you and I were working together and you're sitting here and I was sitting here, we probably wouldn't talk. We'd probably use Campfire. Now, that doesn't mean we can't go grab a room and have a chat about something. It doesn't mean we can't have lunch together and all that stuff. But I do think that a lot of people mistake interruption for collaboration. They think that because there's a lot of talk going on in the office and people are like, shooting ideas off each other and walking up to people, hey, check this out, that's collaboration, but really it's interruption. And I think when you recognize that interruption in itself is a very arrogant act, it's saying that whatever I have to tell you is more important than what you're doing. When you recognize that that's really what you're saying, I think a lot of people will start to pull back and go, well, maybe what I have to ask you is not as important as what you're doing. Maybe we should use something more passive like Campfire or like Basecamp or like any wiki or instant message in your email, where I can hit someone up with a question or whatever, and they can get back to me on their own schedule, not on my schedule. Yeah.
How do you find the balance between internet like disruption versus inspiration? So, you know, like there's a lot of stuff you find that's great on the web, but you get sucked into it and be distracted from work. Is there a balance or a rule you guys have?
No, I think that kind of distraction is good, actually. I think discovery and being aware of what else is going on is very helpful and very handy. I wouldn't really consider that to be distraction because it's voluntary. It's the involuntary stuff that I think is a problem. Like when someone comes up to you and stops you from what you're doing. If you're going to go on the web and like mess around and find something and look around, you decided to do that, and so you're ready to do it. You might be procrastinating or slacking off, but that's going to happen anyway. Like there's no way to avoid that. But at least that you get to decide when that's going to happen instead of someone else. Because if you're in a zone, like if you're in a zone, and everyone here who works on stuff knows about the zone. Like you're in the zone and you've got your flowing and things are working out well, and then someone bothers you and interrupts you and takes you right out of it. That's what's really disruptive and distracting and uncool, I think. But if you can decide when you want to take your distractions on your own time, it's totally fine.
Now that you've gone from clients to customers, how do you balance like the feature versus requests and having all that kind of thing? What do you draw the line on what you guys should build?
That's a really good question. So how do we decide what to do? We have, every year we probably get between it's probably like 5,000 or 10,000 requests, like feature requests every year. Now some of them are the same. Some of them are complete opposites, like they contradict one another. Some of them are very clearly people want this. And so the way to do it is to listen to everybody, but to say no politely to everybody initially. And the reason I say that is because there's way too many ideas that we can ever do. And we have to be very careful about what you want to do. And we also have to think a lot about what people are actually asking for. Because sometimes they'll ask for something in the only way they know how to ask for it, but there's actually a better solution that's deeper. So you have to think about that. We typically will add maybe two to three big features to a product every year, and that's it. A lot of small things, a lot of polish, a lot of tightening things up, but like 2 or 3 big things. So right now, with Basecamp, you heard it here first. We're about to, which is kind of ridiculous, 7 years in, we're going to release a full-blown calendar in Basecamp, which we've never had before. We've always had these milestones. People have been asking for calendars for a calendar for a long time, so we're getting close to having that done. That's going to be a big thing. We just launched a mobile version a few days ago. That's sort of a big thing. But you really have to say no to almost everything if you want to keep your product simple. If you don't, you can do what everyone else does, which is build really big, bloated, slow products that people hate over time. And so our feeling is that we would much prefer people to grow out of our products than to not allow new people to grow into them. You know, what happens in the software world is people keep adding and to appease their existing customer base. But then it becomes so complicated that new people can't figure it out anymore, and then you die. Because you die with your old customers. We'd much rather our old customers who've been with us for 3 or 4 years go, hey guys, I have new needs now, and you guys aren't providing them, and it's time to go. Thanks for letting me use Basecamp, and we would just wish them well. Because there's always more customers who don't use your product than those who do. And so you always want to keep it simple in mind, I think, and that's sort of how we approach it.
Just what is your philosophy on compensation for your employees? And if you're not having really managers in place, how do you determine people's compensation value, raises, that sort of thing?
Yeah. We're still figuring that out. So we're learning all the time about how to do this. We pay significantly above market for certain jobs and probably a little bit above market for everything else, but we're never below market on anything. We care a lot about the people who work for us. So in 10 years, we've only had 3 people leave the company. Actually 4 people leave the company. And most people stick with us for quite a long time. So we're very careful about that. However, at the end of the day, you have to pay people with more than money. So, because there's always someone else who's going to pay more, or could pay more, or whatever. So, I guess there's a certain point there isn't, but mostly there is. So, for example, from May through October, we only work 4 days a week. So everyone has Fridays off in the summer. So that's hard to beat. And we don't, that doesn't mean that you have to work 10-hour days. It means still 8-hour days, Monday through Friday, Thursday, and then everyone's a 3-day weekend from May through October. We're experimenting with some other things I don't want to talk about yet, but other things that we're going to be doing to help employees take some more time off. We try and give everybody a really comfortable environment to work. They can work wherever they want. They can work at our office. They can work at home. It doesn't matter. We don't check hours. We don't punch in. None of that kind of stuff. We don't really care where you work or where you work as long as the work gets done. We give everybody anything they need to do their job. Everyone gets a credit card. They can spend it any way they want within reason. There's no within reason rules. It's simply be respectful and we'll respect you back. And we give everyone the power to do whatever they think is right. And those sorts of things, along with some other things, help round out compensation in a way that I think we take care of people really well in that way.
What advice do you have as far as getting a job?
Yeah. Here's the thing. We're not hiring right now for designers or programmers, but when we do, we usually get about 200 or so resumes for applications, and 98% of them are just terrible. Most people just want a job and not this job. So if you can show your employer or your potential employer that you want this job and not just you're just handing out resumes left and right, that's the way to get a job. And one of the great ways to do it is to go the extra mile because most people don't. So most people will maybe do a cover letter and they'll usually have a spelling error, which is surprising how many of these have spelling errors, so don't get anything wrong with that. And resumes don't really matter either, don't worry so much about that. But most people just send a cover letter and a resume, and they'll expect you to hire them. Some people, however, will put together, are you a designer or are you art direction? Okay, so let's just say you're a web designer for a second. If you're a web designer and we're hiring a web designer, I would want to see a little custom website application. Show me what you can actually build, not what you can talk about building. So a resume and a cover letter is all about what you can talk about building, and showing people portfolio pieces is nice, but at the end of the day, when you're hiring somebody, you don't know if it was really their work or their work plus 4 other people. You don't really know. People are like, I did the McDonald's site. Well, you did. You worked on the McDonald's site with 15 other people. What did you really do? And you can't ever really find out. So if you can build something custom, just small things, even just an app, your resume or whatever as a website, with some design on it and some ideas and some writing, it'll stand out like a bright light. I mean, it really will, because most people don't go to any length to do anything beyond what they're going to do. So anything you can do to go a little bit beyond that, you will stand out. And just about everybody we hire today goes that extra mile, because it says to me they want this job and not just